Hello everyone and welcome back to another Batman miniature game 3rd edition battle report. Today we have a 350 rep battle between the Soldiers of Fortune and Mr. Freeze. At time of recording it's looking like, it's not been revealed yet, but it's looking like Mr. Freeze's crew is about to get some more options added. This is going to look very stupid if it turns out not to be Nora and a couple of new Freeze thugs, but hopefully it will be. By the time this goes live you'll already know. Either way though, playing on the map layout you see before you, let's take a look at the two crew specifics. So in the red corner this week, using all the... There's the dog knocks into my foot. It's become a tradition now apparently, when I'm kneeling down to do these crew overviews. Flashpoint Batman is leading the Soldiers of Fortune today. They're in the red corner. They're using the red related markers for how much damage they do to themselves or others, etc, etc. Joined by Psycho Pirate just for that City of Bane link. His sidekick is Bird. I want my bird. And then we have Infiltrate Orp, Cuchillo and Clover. Upgrades wise, Flashpoint Batman has taken his handguns, which at some point has changed to just an upgrade now for 7 rep and some funding. So he has his Amazon sword still as well, so he can do double blood if he wants, on top of his reinforced gloves, and his good handguns, which are assault and I think just blood stun, but they fire a lot, and he has rapid fire. Infiltrate Op is just great as is. Cuchillo has a grapple gun, and Clover has, I think it's extra ammo. I'll correct that overview if that's wrong. And here we have the pretty standard Mr. Freeze crew again. Looking forward to them getting more options. Not that they need them because I think they're very powerful, but it's just nice to have options, honestly. So this is essentially the crew box just with Killer Frost swapped out for the man himself. So Mr. Freeze is here, his ranged polar bear, his close combat polar bear, and then Freeze Thugs 1 through 4. I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4. The two melee focused ones have cryo grenade upgrades, and the one with the big cannon has been given a magazine. Oh, and Clover was given an extra mag for the Soldier of Fortune. They're in the Team Yellow, and with that, we'll get both sides set up and be back at deployment. So here we are with both crews deployed. The Mr. Freeze crew is on your left and have taken first activation in Battle Round 1. Soldiers of Fortune are on your right. We have some out of deployment placements though, well, one. Infiltrate Op has hidden. She has opted to hide down there, and she is one of the 4 to have Audacity for the Soldiers of Fortune. If we look over here, Psycho Pirate's on top of a car, he's showing off. Bird's here with Audacity, Clover has Audacity, Flashpoint Batman has Audacity, and then Cuchillo is just right next to him to try for that Inspire. And if we come round this side of the table, Mr. Freeze's crew is basically deployed in a line. I think they have one model on the Soldiers of Fortune, yeah, 7 versus 6. So they're in a line, ranged polar bear, whichever thug this is with the ice sword, this is thug 4, has Audacity. Thug 3, which is the other melee focused one, and Mr. Freeze himself also has Audacity. For the purposes of objective cards on the Soldiers of Fortune side, just pointing out that 4 of the 6 of them are veterans, and Flashpoint Batman is not amongst them, even though he really should be. So with that, I don't think there was any Phase 1 or Phase 2 cards being played, so we are just ready to jump into the first turn of Battle Round 1. So it was Freeze Thug 2, nope, Freeze Thug 1 that got the game started without Audacity, the one with the cryo launcher. He moved up his 8 inches and then using the Inspire from Mr. Freeze, put down a suspect marker. However, when he first activated, put Endless Winter into play. Play this card at the start of an activation. When an enemy suspect becomes frozen during a friendly model's action, place 1 stun marker on this card. When it has 3, you can score it, and there can only be 1 in play of this type of card at any one time. So that is now in play. Did forget to mention, just again as a matter of note, Flashpoint Batman is a mastermind and grand strategist, so they did have +1 to take the lead. Didn't make a difference. And they have +2 resource points if they decide to go spend happy with the resource cost on cards. So rather than pass, the Soldiers of Fortune activated Psycho Pirate. He stopped prancing around on top of a car in his underwear and instead moved up 8 inches, staying outside of 4 of the lamp right there, and doing nothing else with his turn. He's a free agent, didn't have an Inspire as a result, but he did put into play Global Offensive. You put it into play in this phase, but it doesn't score until the end of the turn. Have more friendly models with the veteran trait in play than there are enemy suspect markers. Now it is fairly easy for the Mr. Freeze crew to stop this, but that could be playing into further plots, who knows. Freeze Thug 4 activated. He was the one standing on top of the Batmobile. He had Audacity, but he didn't end up using his tactical action. He moved up 8 inches, which got him behind the other thug that moved already. He tossed a cryo grenade at their feet. They both have cryo armor. They do have cryo armor, but they both have cold acclimation, so it does nothing to them. And it froze the friendly suspect marker there. which makes it harder to get rid of. Cochillo activated for the Soldiers of Fortune. No audacity, but right next to his boss for that free inspired manipulate. He moved up behind the car to avoid line of sight from any potential fire from the polar bear, although that polar bear doesn't need line of sight, but he loses dice so he can't see the target. And he has stealth. So he's being stealthy. He used that free inspired manipulate to put down his suspect marker, which you'll see has a 2 counter on it. That's because Invasion was played, hoping to get some score for this before Mr. Freeze ends up using it against them. Play when a friendly model places a suspect within 4 of a scenery element that's within 4 of an enemy model, the red car. Place a number counter with the value equal to the roll on the suspect, reduce it by 1 at the end of each subsequent activation. When it hits 0, score for 2. Simple as that. Well, the man himself, Mr. Freeze, decided to activate. He moved up his 8 inches, which positioned him just within 8 of being able to see Cochillo over there, who I believe is just outside of range 4 of that lamp, so he wasn't illuminated by that, and he does have stealth. First of all, he started by doing Ice Flash on him, which is pass an endurance roll or be frozen. He failed his endurance roll, so he was frozen, so -1 to his defense skill, and he has to pass an endurance roll to be able to do anything on his turn, because he has to break free of the ice that's encasing him. So that was pretty bad for him. Also, if enemy model is affected by Ice Flash, any suspect markers within 2 of him become frozen. So it's still going to count down for the purposes of global offensive, invasion, but it is also now frozen, so that's put 1 marker on Endless Winter. And then just for good measure, Mr. Freeze shot his cryo gun at Cochillo, who thankfully does have a bulletproof vest, because otherwise he would have died. Hit him twice, but it has the exposure rule, so for every hit after the first it does 1 extra blood. So that is 3 of his 5 health right there, because he was down to defense 2. And an Ice Age card has come into play, which is when a friendly model performs an action that makes at least 1 suspect within 4 of an enemy model frozen, you freeze a card, and it can't be scored until such time as a frozen suspect marker is revealed by anyone. So a Search and Destroy has been taken from the hand of Soldiers of Fortune and is now on the table and frozen. Flashpoint Batman decided to activate next as a result of what happened in order to save his good friend Cochillo. He moved into base to base with him, and then using his special action he did the medic ability, because Flashpoint Batman is a medic, he's a surgeon, and healed him for 2 of that 3 damage. Can't do anything about the freeze though, so don't ask how he managed to heal him. Then, just because he wanted something else to do, he used his tactical action to shoot Mr. Freeze. Now his pistols are assault, so he doesn't lose any from moving and firing, and he is within 8. But Mr. Freeze has level 2 cryo armor, so that's basically medium armor, so 2 dice gone from that. All in all, only got 1 hit through with the -1 to his rolls as well because of assault for 1 blood, 1 stun. So not super great, but with the completion of his activation, Invasion does score because the timer counted down to 0. So for the Freeze crew next, it was the close range polar bear, aka the teddy bear that just wants to aggressively high five everyone. No audacity, so he just moved up his, actually I think he has an extra couple of inches because of animal. He might be a bit further forwards because he only moved his base 10, and I don't think that took into account the animal stat. But either way, he might be a little bit further forward. During his turn, important research was put into play. Play during a friendly model's activation at the start of the next enemy activation, at the end of the next enemy activation. If the opponent has at least 1 Ice Age card in play, remove 1 card in play and score this card. So that'll free up the Search and Destroy, but it's worth a massive 3. Clover activated, but first of all, Animal, I must have been thinking of a different rule that just lets you ignore up to 2-inch high scenery. Clover, he started within 8 of Flashpoint Batman, even though Flashpoint Batman moved up. So when he moved over here, he used that free Inspired Manipulate to put down a suspect marker. Then for his actual action, special action, because he had audacity, he could do more, he used Rapid Fire, and then he shot at the high-fiving polar bear. All said and done, after adding on the die for Rapid Fire, losing the dice for moving, losing the die for him having cryo armor level 1, he was rolling 2 normal dice, all said and done, against defense 3. 1 of them got through for 1 blood, 1 stun. He did put into play during his turn, however, Cyber Attack, got a 1, you add on 2, and then obviously that makes 3. There's only 1 enemy suspect marker on the field, so that's now got a 3 count. It will time it down after every subsequent activation. When it hits 0, this card will score. So it's a way of saying to Mr. Freeze, get rid of that suspect marker you put down, or else we score a card. However, important research now scores, because they didn't do anything to stop it. That scores for 3. The Ice Age card is removed from the game though, and Search and Destroy goes back into the Soldiers of Fortune deck. So we're back at this angle of the table next, because the ranged polar bear activated. He did eventually move up next to the truck where you can see him there. But from where he was standing, Clover accidentally exposed himself to that lamp, and he's medium range and had line of sight, so he didn't even need to use his special action for barrage. He could just straight up fire at him. He lost a die because Clover has a bulletproof vest. Oh, also, sorry, this is relevant. Start of activation though, played Kingdom of Ice. Play at start of an activation when a model suffers the freeze effect or damage from a weapon with the cold trait, place a blood marker on this card. When it has 5, you score it, and you can't have more than one of these in play. Same as Endless Winter. That's relevant because his weapon has cold, so it's going to have 1 blood marker on it because he smacked Clover real good. Now, base damage of this gun is 2 blood, 2 stun. It also has the exposure rule, so it's done 2 hits for 4 blood, 4 stun. Exposure's adding 1 more damage type of choice. It's going to, well, it doesn't really matter because he's a 5/5 miniature, but choosing blood, and that means that poor Clover, his game is already done in turn 1, which is pretty ridiculous. But that gun, if you let it see you so it doesn't lose dice from having to use barrage, is definitely the strongest gun they have. So we're up to the second last activation for the Soldiers of Fortune. It was the Sidekick Bird. He moved up 10 inches into base to base with the sewer marker there, and has opted to put down a suspect marker, which is reflecting a lot of light. There we go. Put down a suspect marker there and did nothing else. So they've just got Infiltrate Op left, but there's still 2 Freeze Thugs that can go. So of those 2, it was Freeze Thug 2, that's hard to say, with the gun hands. How does she scratch herself? Anyway, she moved up without audacity. She just stopped herself right there. Didn't do anything else with her turn. Can't put down a suspect marker because she's too close to another one. Actually, she might, yeah, because that one's theirs. With the completion of her activation, Cyber Attack scores for the Soldiers of Fortune because it ticks down to 0. So Infiltrate Op was last to go, but as always she has a busy turn when she's got audacity. First of all, she used hacking to move the suspect marker that Bird put down, and this one just to move them further away from teammates to try and stop Ice Flash getting easy freezes and stuff like that. She then shot the close range Polar Bear, losing 1 die, the strength die, to Cryo Armor. Still managing to do really well with the remaining normal dice though, didn't even need a red dot. Got him 4 times for 4 blood. Now they have 10 endurance, so it's not like they're feeling it too much. They're on half health, they're just getting angry. She then moved through the church door there into the alley here, and she has a built-in radio, so she's inspired, and used that free inspired manipulate to put down a suspect marker. That's it, she did a lot. So the final Freeze Thug activated, number 3, and they had Audacity, and it pays to wait to use Audacity until the end of the turn when everyone else has moved. She only moves 8, as most of the Freeze crew do, they're kind of slow. Got her to just there, but that does mean she can actually see. It's going to be hard to get angle on, but she can see round that corner, and I think that shows it. The building's a lot thinner than you might think when you see it from above. So she could throw her cryo grenade such that it did cold effect on Infiltrate Op, which gives her -2 to her next movement. It also freezes the suspect marker next to her. Also puts 1 more marker on Kingdom of Ice for freezing, not Kingdom of Ice, sorry, on Endless Winter for freezing that suspect marker. So let me just adjust that, put the +1 on the wrong card there. Well, actually no, it would be both, because she also did the cold effect and she froze a suspect marker. So yeah, sorry, it's 1 on both. She's for her tactical action, because she was within 8, oh it doesn't matter, but either way she only did 1 thing with the tactical action. She put down a suspect marker, and that scored Stay Cool. Friendly model places a friendly suspect marker within 4 of an enemy frozen suspect. So that scored, and because of an enemy being near a frozen suspect, when it gets frozen, another Ice Age card, pardon me, has come into play and has frozen a Stick to the Plan. So we have a lot to cover at the end of Battle Round 1. There are so many cards in play and things to talk about. The Soldiers of Fortune have already lost someone. Gachillo is a frozen block of ice that has to free himself next turn if he wants to do anything. It's an absolute nightmare, but there is a lot of scoring to go over. So of the cards in play, let's do Soldiers of Fortune first actually. Global Offensive does score, because there are more, even with Clover dying, there's 3 models with Veteran left on the field, and there's only 2 enemy suspect markers down, so it did score for 3. They're also playing 2 Phase 4s. They had another Stick to the Plan in hand, beyond the one that was frozen, so that does score because they put down 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 4-2. So that's scored. And due to poor wording on the card, like Ground War is not a well worded card, just for the record, but this does actually score. You have 2 friendly models not suffering KO within 4 of the same scenery element that's within 8 to the opponent's deployment zone. See, it just doesn't read right if you ignore the part in brackets. That's within 8 inches the opponent's deployment zone. Does that mean that within 8 of the edge of the deployment zone, or inside it? It's a little unclear, although it does specify or inside, so I guess it is implied. This church wall here, which forms all this part of scenery, is within 8 of the freeze deployment line. So infantry ops there, bird is there, so it does score. It's a very badly done card. That does need a correction, I feel. But not to worry though. Mr. Freeze still has Endless Winter in play. It stays in play, so does Kingdom of Ice. Endless Winter is 1 away from scoring, Kingdom of Ice is 3, and they're scoring a Phase 4 card as well. They're scoring Send Them to the Gola. There are at least 6 models within 4 inches of frozen suspects. Take your pick, really. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there you go, more than enough. So that's also scored. With that, 1 stun healed on the close range polar bear and Mr. Freeze. Into battle round 2 we go to see who has Audacity. So here we are at the top of battle round 2. Everyone except poor Ice Block, formerly known as Cuchillo, has Audacity for the Soldiers of Fortune crew, and they did win the roll off to go first. If they want to, that is, because they do have some passes, even more than they had before now. For the Mr. Freeze crew, close range polar bear Mr. Freeze, the thug with the sword, and the thug with the fist under there all have Audacity. There's only one Phase 1/Phase 2 card being played. It's a Phase 2, it's from the Mr. Freeze crew, and it is frozen assets. It's essentially a 1-turn loot, and because the lady with the power fist down there is in base to base with a friendly suspect marker, she's just instantly holding this, so as long as she holds on to it till the end of the turn, she will score this for 2. So for the Soldiers of Fortune, they didn't pass. Flashpoint Batman was up right from the off. He used Precise Blows for his special action, then charged into the Gun Hands Lady Freeze thug to slice her up with his Amazonian sword, which is sharp and magic, although that's not relevant here. She's getting 1 free effort from being next to a frozen suspect marker. She put in 2 effort herself. In retaliation, Flashpoint Batman put in 2, so it was essentially she was just getting the free 1 from the suspect marker being frozen there, and the cryo armor took away a die as well. But he still managed to get 2 hits through on her, including the strength die, which was a crit, so she has been knocked down and has taken a total of, lamps in the way, 4 blood, so she's still standing. She has 6 health, 5 willpower, so she's still standing, but in doing all that, Flashpoint Batman did score a Search and Destroy, recently unfrozen. An enemy model suffers at least 2 hits during an attack action where a friendly model performs at least 2 efforts. Done and done. And the first activation for the Freeze crew in Battle Round 2 was the high-fiving close range polar bear, moved into base to base with the Cuchillo, but used his tactical action to reveal the frozen enemy suspect marker that would have been underneath him. In doing so, he has scored a chill out, reveal an enemy frozen suspect. Simple as that, scores for 2. However, in doing that, the frozen stick to the plan is now back on top of the Soldiers of Fortune deck, ready to be drawn, which isn't exactly a good thing, but at least it isn't frozen, because that could score future cards if it still was. Bird activated next, and rather than take the sword grating that he ended his turn next to, 10 inches was enough that he could come round here and get into base to base with the power fist wielding Freeze thug, who's also holding the 1-turn frozen assets loot. He attacked her with his Bloodstun Combat Machete. He's a weapon master for +1 to hit, still losing 1 die to her cryo armor, but she had no free efforts because that suspect marker there is not frozen. If we come over here to look, he efforted twice, she efforted nothing. She's a 5 willpower, 7 endurance miniature, pretty tanky for a henchman. He only got 2 through, all said and done, because his attack 3, like you feel like he should be more. Actually, you should check the app real quick just to see if he's more. We'll do that after this cut. Either way, he got her twice for 2 blood, 2 stun, and met the criteria as a result to score another Search and Destroy, which we've already seen. So he has met the criteria for that and scored it for 2. So we're staying over here because the Freeze Thug with the Power Fist, Freeze Thug 3, activated in retaliation and used as her special action, Drop It. You do an opposed willpower against the target. She picked a bird, and if you succeed in defeating their willpower, which she did, you force them to put down a suspect marker. So the red suspect marker there has been put down. And then she, as a tactical action, assaulted him with her power fist. It's blood stun, cold, crushing, heavy, +1 to the strength die, although her base strength is bad. Crushing is you need 2 defense dice for each 1 successful hit against you. Bird didn't effort, she didn't effort. All said and done, she got 3 hits through for 3 blood, 3 stun, and then she retreated over here to the sewer grating because she is holding on to those frozen assets. Oh, and because she did cold, Bird has -2 movement next time he moves, and that is not in focus, was it? And that is the 3rd pip on Kingdom of Ice, so 2 more to go before that scores. The Psycho Pirate activated for the Soldiers of Fortune moved up 8 inches, then used his emotional control to spread love. It's bringing love, get it! So that's an 8-inch bubble of love, which means all enemies deal 1 less damage, and the person receiving the damage chooses which damage type is reduced by 1. So that might help out Flashpoint Batman if he gets ganked in a second. During his turn, he also put into play a global offensive, which was already seen. Less likely that will score again, but we'll see. So we're still staying over here as Freeze Thug 4 activated, the one with the sword, and he had Audacity. He moved over here, he used his special action to toss a cryo grenade to freeze that suspect marker there, which in turn does cold to Bird, giving him -4 in his next move. Doesn't add 1 to Kingdom of Ice though, because it has to do damage. It does specify an attack which does damage and also cold. So it doesn't add on to that, but in freezing that suspect marker, completes the Endless Winter that was in play. So that has scored for 2, and it was already in play, so he can play something else, which he is. He's putting Important Research into play, because in doing that, Bird being there, froze a card with an Ice Age, so ironically, it was Bird's Reinforced card. His unique card is now currently frozen. Didn't do anything with his actual tactical action, didn't need to, can't attack at range anyway, so he's done. So we're in the alley here because Infiltrate Op activated and did a bunch of stuff with her Audacity. First of all, she spent her tactical action and special action to remove her own frozen suspect marker, which one means that Bird's reinforcement card unfroze, which also means Important Research will not score, so it's getting discarded, so it's gone, which is a good point denial. Then, because she has a radio, she has a free Manipulate, so she used that to put down another suspect marker. But the other reason she removed that first one, the one that was frozen, is to turn it into loot. So she is holding on to loot for the remainder of the game, ideally for them, but she didn't move at all. That's the only downside. Nice quick activation for the Freeze crew next. Ranged Polar Bear activated without Audacity, but made use of a tactical Manipulate to remove the suspect marker, the frozen, yeah, it was frozen. The frozen one that Bird was forced to put down, and scored, I think, the final Chill Out for 2 victory points. So that's on the pile. Didn't get to shoot his gun. He's only got 1 load of ammunition left though, so maybe it's better to hold on to it for later. So the last activation for the turn for Soldiers of Fortune would have been Coachillo. He tried to break free of his frozen prison and wasn't able to do it. He failed his endurance roll, so he remains frozen, and that's their turn done. So the Mr. Freeze crew still has the man himself and one of his thugs, I believe, to activate in a row. So there was actually 2 Freeze thugs left to go, however one of them was Gun Hands Lady. She was knocked down without Audacity, so all she did for her turn was stand up, not doing anything else. The one with the cryo cannon moved over here, also without Audacity, but next to Mr. Freeze, used that free inspired Manipulate to put down a suspect marker, and has activated a Freeze is coming. When you put down a suspect marker, roll 1d3, add 1 to it, put that counter on it at the end of each subsequent activation, reduce it by 1, and it scores for a massive 3 if it hits 0. This is the card to force your opponent to interact with your suspect markers, essentially. So that's in play, and now all that leaves is Mr. Freeze. So the Iceman cometh indeed. Mr. Freeze's turn is done, but he got a lot of stuff in his turn done. Starting with, at the very start of it, he put another Endless Winter into play, because the other one is scored, so that's in play now. From where he was standing, he did a tactical attack action on Batman. He hit for 3 blood, all said and done, losing 1 die for his Bat Armor MK2. Exposure would mean it does 2 more, and Mr. Freeze was out of the 8-inch bubble from Psycho Pirate to lose 1 damage. So that is 5 blood and cold done to Flashpoint Batman, which put 1 more pip on Kingdom of Ice. He then did a movement action to come down here. Oh no, sorry, from where he was, first of all, he did his first special action. He did Ice Flash, which is range 10, so you could see Psycho Pirate, who only went and failed his endurance roll as well, so he got frozen, which means there's another pip on Kingdom of Ice, which adds it up to 5, so it has scored, which is fun. He then moved over here, and because he's a scientist, or has scientific, he can do 2 special actions in a turn, because Ice Flash is a special action. So he did a cryo grenade, chucked it at Bird, and froze that suspect marker there, so the Endless Winter he put into play already has 1 pip on it. He had a really good turn, and that takes us to scoring for the second round. So at the end of Battle Round 2, this is an interesting one, because the Soldiers of Fortune are kind of losing bad on the table, but I'm pretty sure they're way ahead point score wise. Could be wrong, but they're having another effective Phase 4, because they're scoring a stick to the plan. They do have more suspect markers than the Freeze crew, so that's scored for 2. And they're scoring ground war again for an even closer building. Bird and Infiltrate Op are right next to this building, which is inside, half inside the Mr. Freeze deployment. So that's scored for 3. So they scored 5 there. The frozen assets in play scores for the Mr. Freeze crew. The freezes coming in Endless Winter stay in play. And, oh yeah, the valuable commodity stays in play for Soldiers of Fortune. Forgot there was a global offensive in play. There's only 3 models on the table with a veteran. How many suspect markers does the freeze crew have? They have 3. And it has to be more. So the global offensive does not score. That's discarded. And with that, into the penultimate round. So we're at the top of the penultimate round, battle round 3, and the Soldiers of Fortune have easily retained first activation for the turn, although again they have a bunch of passes if they want to use them. They're playing one phase 1 card. It is their Die Hard, and it's being played on Infiltrate Op because she is just the jack of all trades. I know the other half of that is Master of None, but she's really basically great at everything. So, including surviving because she's Defense 5. So the Die Hard is on her. There's 2 phase 2s being played by the Freeze crew. The Frozen Assets is being played. It's being played on that friendly suspect marker that's counting down for a freeze is coming, so that henchman has now picked up the 1 turn loot. And Mr. Freeze is unique, searching for Nora has been played. So Mr. Freeze picks 2 scenery elements, the opponent picks another, and then Mr. Freeze puts a Nora marker within 2 of each. Any model can manipulate them to move them 4. Mr. Freeze can use the resource of this card during his turn to get a free extra move, so in total he can move 16 in a turn, which is pretty nice. The blue van here has been put, so basically he's in base to base with them, which technically means he just removes it as soon as he activates. The other one, this building, was placed right down there, and all the way over here, this car, as far away as possible, is the other marker. So he's got till the end of the game, and if he manages to get rid of all the Nora markers, he will score that for 3. Other than that, everyone who's conscious has healed 1 stun if they have it. All the Soldiers of Fortune, including Psycho Pirate, who's still frozen, has Audacity. Cachillo does not, and who's also still frozen. And in the Mr. Freeze crew, the Gun Hands Lady does not have Audacity, and neither does the one who's holding the frozen assets, or the ranged polar bear. Everyone else does. They're focusing their efforts down here this turn. So with that, let's carry on. Flashpoint Batman once again got a turn started, and he was done playing around. He left his former target and went after the cryo cannon wielding henchman without Audacity over here. Efforted a full 3 times, still losing a die to his cryo armor. No free efforts from being near a frozen suspect, but he did effort 3 times as well. So essentially it was 4 attacks down from his attack 5. But he rolled very, very well. He used precise blows, forgot to mention that, for the +1. And he's got a reroll on the strength die from it being sharp. All said and done, 10 damage. So the poor henchman is, as we call it around here, a very dead. Now that doesn't score anything in terms of their cards or anything like that. It does mean he's dropped the frozen assets, which Flashpoint Batman is now holding. So it can still feasibly score. Not super likely, because Flashpoint Batman would have to go down. I think he's got 5 endurance left, because he's pretty tanky. But yeah, that's Mr. Freeze's crew's first actual casualty. Before we move on to the Freeze crew's first activation, noticed a little bit of an error we've got to kind of backtrack on in a manner of speaking. When Freeze threw his cryo grenade, he didn't freeze an enemy suspect marker, he froze a friendly one. The enemy one had been removed by the polar bear, so it shouldn't have put a marker on the Endless Winter that was in play. Too late to reverse everything that's happened since then, but to make up for it, the 1 pip that's on the new version of the card that's put down is going away. Freeze Thug 4 activated with Audacity, that's the one with the sword. He came into the alley with his 8 inches, it put him just where he needed to be. He chucked his cryo grenade at Infiltrate Op, or more precisely the enemy suspect marker there. So that puts a marker on Endless Winter, does cold to her as well, and in doing so freezes stick to the plan. So that's now frozen there. He put down a suspect marker for his actual tactical action, and that scored the second, I think, of 3, yep. Stay cool for putting a suspect next to an enemy frozen suspect. Bird was up next for the Soldiers of Fortune with -4 to his move, or -6, either way he only used like 4 of it. He eventually used it to retreat just halfway behind here for some cover. But first he spent his tactical action and his special action to remove the enemy frozen suspect marker he was standing on. In doing so, he freed his frozen card, the stick to the plan, and also scored Confusion. Friendly model reveals an enemy suspect marker within 8 of the enemy deployment zone. Done and done. With the completion of his activation though, Freeze is coming, counts down to 0, so that has scored for 3. Mr. Freeze activates, so we're going to have to do a little bit of a pan shot here for where he moved. He started in base to base with one of the Nora markers, so that's just been removed. He then moved over here with his movement action, stood next to the other one, so that gets removed. Then for 1 resource point, using the objective card in play, he gets another free movement, or he gets a movement rather on top of his normal one, which moved him to there. He used Ice Flash to freeze that suspect marker next to the frozen Psycho Pirate. That put the second marker, Endless Winter, and froze an invasion card. So that's now frozen, which allowed him to put into play Important Research. So if that's still frozen by the end of whoever activates next, it will score for 3. He then tried his Ice Flash on Bird, and I don't know what's wrong with the Soldiers of Fortune today, but they cannot pass an endurance roll to save their life, and usually they're pretty consistently easy to pass, unless you're going after like a super weak henchman. But no, he failed, so he's frozen, and then, just for good measure, Mr. Freeze used the last of his ammo to shoot him, losing some dice to moving, losing some dice to, well, 1 die to the Bulletproof Vest. Got him for 2, exposure makes it 3. Bird is still alive though, on 1 HP. Infiltrate Op activated next, and she could have spent 2 of her actions, especially because she has the radio, to remove the friendly frozen suspect there to unfreeze invasion and stop Important Research scoring, letting it happen to hopefully score more at the end of the round. So what she actually did was come around the corner here, used hacking to move the enemy suspect marker between those 2 there, and actually I might need to measure that a bit more, I'm not sure if that's 4 inches, but either way, it's within 8 and out of line of sight, so she meets the scoring conditions for Black Ops to score that for 2, using either her own tactical action or the one from Batman. High-fiving Polar Bear activated and decided to give Coachella the high five of his life, not realising he was frozen of course, and shattering him into a million billion pieces. Got him for 4 blood, 4 stun. To cut a long story short, Coachella is dead. He actually only just died because he only had 1 blood on him. He's a 5/5 model. And then the high-fiving Polar Bear wanted to go give Batman a high five and moved into base to base with him over there. At the start of that activation though, he put another Kingdom of Ice in play because there's no longer one in play, and it's already got 1 marker on it because his close combat attacks have cold. Well, it was down to the Psycho Pirate to be the last activation for Soldiers of Fortune this turn. He tried to unfreeze himself and couldn't. Endurance rolls are just something the Soldiers of Fortune cannot pass this game. So he's activating and unactivating. So now, who for the freeze crew hasn't gone? The Ranged Polar Bear and Lady with Gun Hands and Power Fist Lady. So we can cover 2 out of 3 of those. The Ranged Polar Bear just simply moved position a little bit, put himself there, he didn't have audacity. The Lady with the Power Fist moved over here into the corner, put down a suspect marker, used her crowd grenade to then freeze it, but also did a freeze is coming and only a 1 got rolled, so it goes up to a 2 and will be ticking down, well, it's going to tick down to 1 when she activates, so it will be the first activation of the next turn that decides whether or not it scores. So all that remained was for Gun Lady to shoot her gun hands into Batman's back. Did not do that well with the roll, to be honest, and only got through with 1 for 1 blood, 1 stun, although the stun is starting to add up on him, mostly self-inflicted, but still. Now let's move on to the scoring for the penultimate round. So we have a lot of things to cover in the cleanup phase. There's a lot of cards in play. Let's start with Soldier of Fortune. They're putting another stick to the plan in play, and it actually scores. I'm kind of surprised they got away with this, to score so many of these. But they did. Their Die Hard also scores because Infiltrate Op survived. So that's 4 points for them. The Viable Commodity stays in play on Infiltrate Op, and she's got a good chance of surviving for that other 3. The Mr. Freeze crew though, they have so many cards. Playing a Phase 4 card. And the next and only other, send them to the cooler. There is indeed 6 models within 4 of Frozen Suspect markers. Down here, the 4 here, there as well. So it's exactly 6. So that's scored. A freeze is coming. Has to count down 1 more time. So that's in play. Kingdom of Ice is in play with 1 marker on it. Oh no, it'll be 2 now because Batman got shot. 2 markers. The Frozen Assets does not score because Batman yoinked them. So that's discarded. The Searching for Nora stays in play, and Endless Winter stays in play as well. Let's go to the final round. So here we are, dawn of the final day, the top of Battle Round 4. Every survivor for the Soldier's Fortune, frozen or otherwise, have Audacity markers. For the Mr. Freeze crew, it's the Close Range Polar Bear, the Power Fist Lady, Mr. Freeze himself, and the other melee focused thug down here. The Soldiers of Fortune have once again kept first activation, mostly thanks to Batman. There is no additional cards being put into play, so we're ready to just jump straight in. Flashpoint Batman activated. He came round the corner here, and he is just outside rather the 10 inches of deployment, or rather I don't think his base is, but the assessment marker he put down is, which is important because he needed to put it where it was hidden, and still within 8 of an enemy who can't see him in order to score a Black Ops, but also as a resource during his turn just to keep him alive. They Must Know Pain was played to heal 2 damage on him. Oh, and with Flashpoint Batman's turn, the freeze is coming from the assessment marker down there has now scored as well. I can't believe the ranged polar bear is actually going to finish this battle with ammo unused, but yeah, he activated and removed the frozen enemy assessment marker there, putting the final point on Endless Winter, so that's scored, but also during his turn, scoring the final chill out as well. So as per usual, Mr. Freeze just gathering up those points, reaping the harvest at the end of the game. So Infiltrate Op down here, she's just securing the loot. She used hacking to move that friendly suspect marker with her a little bit to make it harder to freeze. I don't think she can get it far enough away that it's going to be stopped. And even though it has no chance of scoring, she put Global Offensive into play. But yeah, there's no chance this is scoring, but either way. So Mr. Freeze activated and as a special action used Ice Flash on Bird. And mostly, sorry, not Ice Flash, the other one, Cryo Grenade, to do cool on him while he's frozen, mostly just to get, oh no, it wouldn't add on to Kingdom of Ice because it doesn't do damage. He's out of ammo, so he can't do anything else, so no, he never did anything then. All he did was move and then spend 1 resource point to move again in order to get into base to base with where the final Nora resource marker was, scoring his unique card. It's going to be a very awkward unique card if you can have him and the villain version of Nora in the same list. Again, assuming that's who has been revealed by the time you hear this. But either way, that scored for 3. Well, Psycho Pirate tried to activate. I swear to you, endurance tests are easy. It's just get equal to or under your endurance on 3 dice picking the lowest. It's not hard, but he failed, so he's not getting a turn. That's his game over. So this is really the last points that the Mr. Freeze crew are going to have the opportunity to score for the game, I think. The Thug down here, he put assessment marker down within 4 of a frozen enemy one, and as a result scored the final Stay Cool. So the miracle has occurred finally. Bird passed his endurance roll to unbreak himself from the ice, or break himself from the ice, either way. He's free of the ice is the important part, so he walked up to the ranged polar bear and attacked him with that combat machete and weapon master. Forgot to put the damage down. This is going to be the last activation of the game. It's the only thing that can make a difference to scores. He efforted twice. Actually, did he have enough to effort twice? I think he was mostly bleeding. Yeah, he's fine willpower wise. He could have done it twice because that's the important part. He landed 3 hits through, I believe, and as a result scored Search and Destroy, although 2 of the stun damage he did was ignored thanks to the polar bear being huge, but that doesn't matter. It's just down to the hits. So with that, we're going to the final scores with both sides, I think, scoring most of their deck. Oh, but before final scores, we have to, of course, cover the cards in play. Kingdom of Ice does not score. Didn't get up to 5. So it is discarded. The loot does score because Infiltrate Op knows how to look after loot, so that scores for 3, but the Global Offensive, obviously, no. There's only 2 veterans left on the table, yeah. So that's discarded. Now we can go to the actual score piles. So I think at the start of this match, the Freeze crew was definitely dominating, taking out Clover early, really keeping control of the battlefield, and that led to them scoring even faster as the game went on, to the point where I think they've won easily. Whereas before I was thinking, I'm pretty sure Soldiers of Fortune were ahead points wise for the first 2 turns. Let's see what they got though. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 15, I can count, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Very, very healthy score. Soldier of Fortune deck, very good. 33, playing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. Yeah, they really dominated at the end there. 42. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Mr. Freeze had that both in the table and in the points there. That was a very poor showing for the Soldiers of Fortune. It's not hard to pass an endurance roll. Like, that would have passed it right there. That would have passed it right there. Like, they just could not get... They could not get the rolls when they needed to, both to avoid the freezing and to unfreeze. Granted, Cachillo is only like a 5 endurance miniature, but Bird is 7. Well, he did break out at the end, to be fair. Psycho Pirate is 6, but that definitely was a massive hampering to them. Never seen so many failed endurance rolls ever. But either way, I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching. Hopefully Mr. Freeze has some new models to see coming soon-ish in about a month. Looking forward to that. Not familiar with Nora as a villain at all, so that'll be interesting, and especially to see what they bring to the team, because the Mr. Freeze crew is very effective as is. They synergize very well. Their deck is really, really good, as is proven because they went up against another very good deck here. The Soldiers of Fortune deck is very good. Not too keen on Flashpoint Batman though. He never performs as good as just having Bane, which is a shame because Flashpoint Batman looks cool. Either way though, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please do remember to show your support and subscribe if you want to see more. If you want to go above and beyond, consider Patreon or a membership on YouTube as well. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you next time. Ta for now.